Is the Beanie Baby Is your boo-doo? Is the Beanie Baby craze of the 1990s the same as what we've seen from sports cards and other collectibles over the last 2 years? No. Well, today I'm going to talk about a documentary that I watched on HBO Max called Beanie Mania and how it can tie into all of the things that maybe we are experiencing today, similarities, dissimilarities, and so on. Stick around. Happy holidays to all my sports card collector, investor, all of my collectibles friends out there. I hope that everybody is doing amazingly well. Hopefully getting a little bit of R&R before we kickstart 2022. Can you believe it's already almost 2022? Simply unbelievable. If you are new here, please hit that subscribe button. If you like what you hear, the like button, and also connect with us on Instagram at The Personal Finance Dad and also on Twitter, The Personal Finance Dad. Today I'm going to talk about a documentary that was absolutely fascinating. Please watch it if you have interest in just collectibles in general and markets, collectibles markets. It was very, very good. And it is called Beanie Mania. It's on HBO Max. So you probably have to get a subscription or maybe they've got a kind of a free trial, but it was totally worth watching. I was a kid during this time, during the 90s when Beanie Babies were going absolutely ballistic. And so I only have the viewpoint of being, 12, 13, 14 years old when this stuff was so hot. And it was kind of funny to watch this as an adult. Now, granted, it's a documentary. It's it's one-sided or two-sided or whatever. It's one person's viewpoint, but I thought that it gave some really good information and something to just kind of sink your teeth into enough to get a pretty good idea of what was going on here. So the one thing I did not realize about Beanie Babies back then is this was basically started and exploded by moms, by parents, but really it was moms in the Midwest. Specifically, it talks about a big group of them in Illinois and then also just kind of in the Midwest that were serious collectors of these types of things. And this thing kind of continues to snowball and snowball, catching popularity. But some of the things that these guys did at Warner Company, it was Ty Warner. So on the tags, you'll see TY. Ty Warner and his company, man, he did some really masterful marketing stuff for these Beanie Babies. One thing that he did do is he did not sell in big box stores. And keep in mind, this is pre-internet, or it's kind of the beginnings of the internet. He did not sell in Walmarts and Kmarts and Targets, etc. He only sold in boutique type stores. And actually, I remember the only place in town where I lived in Tallahassee that had these that I knew of, in the beginnings anyway, was a store called Book Time. And it was just a bookstore. And it was one of, these small retailers that carried Beanie Babies. But this was all done by design to kind of give the impression of limited supply and scarcity. And as this thing progressed and as they started to get more popular, it was incredible the type of stuff that they did. And one thing that they did is they retired Beanie Babies. So what they would do is they would make announcements of, at this date, we're going to retire XYZ Beanie Babies. And so there would be a rush on these Beanie Babies at the stores. And of course, it wasn't as easy as just getting online and finding them or going to Walmart and Target and waiting out in the parking lot, sleeping overnight, for the Beanie Baby delivery. No, it was like you didn't know where they were going to be. You were calling. There was people that were calling stores in other states, like in the yellow pages, to find specific Beanie Babies. So really this started with parents and moms, and then it moved down into kids and it being just a big toy line, a popular toy, seasonal toy, that everybody was getting involved in. And then there was, it reached a point where there was a secondary market, and then secondary market prices started going way up. There was, talk of $100,000 offers for certain Beanie Babies, etc. And so then it became an investment. Then Beanie Babies were talked as, hey, we got to pack these away. We got to, there is a secondary market. These things are, holding value. These things are rare and scarce. People want them and they are valuable. So we're going to buy them and hold them. Keep in mind, this is also during a very similar time. This is kind of on the back end of the junk wax era, what we call for sports cards, in that kind of late 80s but early 90s timeframe. This is coming right off the back of that, really, 93, 94, 95, 96. 96, 97, going all the way up to 2000 is when this took hold. So who knows? Maybe the sports card people moved into Beanie Babies. I don't know. In the documentary, it talks about how once the secondary market came to life, it just changed the whole attitude of this thing forever. And actually, the people that used to work there said that was actually a big issue for their brand. From a branding standpoint, they were having an issue with the secondary market being so massive. And then the one thing that came in that really kind of hurt, this particular market in particular, does this sound familiar? And we're not even just talking about sports cards. We're talking about all types of different collectibles. Counterfeits. And if you know what a Beanie Baby looks like, there's not much to it. It's a stuffed animal. Now, it's a cool little stuffed animal, and there's some things that are, about them that are unique. But is it a shock that counterfeits came into this market, or people saw dollar signs and made counterfeits of these? It's absolutely not a shock at all. Just because it is something that is, I would think fairly easy to do. Not even good fakes. They had bad fakes that came into the market, but it says in the documentary, the fakes got better and better. Of course, you've got the tie tag that you have to do and so forth. And so what came about with that? Authentication of Beanie Babies was a thing. I did not know this. I did not know this when I was younger, but there was people that did this. There was over 100 different price guides for Beanie Babies. Just like the Beckett magazines of old, there was Beanie Baby price guides. I never did see these. Like when I was a kid, I wasn't collecting them to know, to get a price guide or anything like that. We weren't big into Beanie Babies, my family. But I didn't realize there were so many price guides as well. So this got bigger than I actually thought. In 1997, eBay, our friends at eBay sold $500,000 of Beanie Babies in 1 month. And in 1997 alone, there was $400 million of Beanie Babies sold in that year. During this time as well, AOL came out. Of course, if you remember the floppy disk, actually Brad, the comeback card investor, still uses this today for his internet, but the dial-up internet, okay? So the Beanie Baby folks actually were way ahead of the game, set up a Beanie Babies website to where you could track all the product that they are releasing. So it was a checklist. They had this checklist out in 96, 97, which is incredible, but they were way ahead of their time for other companies doing this. So they had the checklist, but they also had ways for collectors to talk to each other. So they had a chat. They had these AOL chats and these, the website chat room. And then they also had a vehicle for people to buy and sell Beanie Babies through this website to connect collectors. Again, it's just amazing kind of marketing business model that they had working. And it gets even better. So on this website, now you've got all these collectors that are all over this website, collectors/investors. One day the website goes down and all there is a clock. And I believe it was 14 days or something. It says in the documentary, it's a countdown clock, 14 or 15 days, and nobody knows what it's about. And then at the end of the 14, 15 days, they announce which Beanie Babies they are retiring. So what happens then? There's a huge rush for that list of Beanie Babies that they're retiring. And so that what they would do is they would release a Beanie Baby, they would retire another one. It kind of sounds to me in a similar fashion to, NFTs, when you're burning NFTs. For those that aren't in the NFT game, essentially you're destroying an NFT or destroying cryptocurrency, which of course is destroying the supply of that particular thing. That's kind of what they were doing. FOMO was out of control. I think that we can agree on this. And that's just such the thing that we see again in sports cards and collectibles is they created a sense of urgency. There was collectability among these people, but then of course you had speculators, you had investors that came in and the thing went absolutely ballistic. There is a guy on here, a collectibles expert, Harry Rinker, that's famous for books that he's written as well on collectibles. And he's also in this kind of talking about different facets of this, but there's just a really interesting human psychology element to that Beanie Baby craze. Now, is this the same as sports cards? No, it's not. It's not in the sense that, Daisy, the sea lion, is that a store of value? I suppose could have been back in the 90s. It's the same kind of NFT argument. It's a store of value, right? What's the utility of it? There wasn't really any utility to Daisy, the sea lion or whatever the heck it was. It was simply just a thing that didn't really have any sort of usability. It was just something that people wanted, right? It was like short printed, but there wasn't enough to keep it going. There wasn't enough usability. There wasn't any history to Beanie Babies. This was an obvious fad. It had come out of nowhere. It had exploded, and then it went away. Sports cards are a much more established market. Now, of course, speculating on ultra modern stuff is in a similar fashion to kind of what we see with some of this, with some of the Beanie Baby stuff, because you do have, new prospects, new players. Some of them are not going to work out, just like, Leo the Lion or whatever, Beanie Baby is not going to work out. That particular player that does not become the next Michael Jordan, his cards will sink in value. His or her cards will sink in value. Now, will there be collectibles for that specific player? There would definitely will be some, probably, for a variety of different players, in the same fashion that there are still Beanie Baby collectors. There are still collectors, but it just comes down to, what does that collector base look like? Does it grow over time? Does it have the ability to grow? It's like what we talk about with the demand side. The demand side is always wonky, really, really hard to figure out. And this is a great example with Beanie Babies, where demand went absolutely ballistic because it was a sea of FOMO just sweeping the nation, and a very, very smart kind of marketing campaign to sell toys, essentially creating kind of those FOMO, type feelings. And it's playing on human psychology. It's playing on those things in the same way that sports cards has the ability to do as well, in certain ways, in certain parts of the hobby, that sports betting side, there's very similar, type aspects to it. But of course, you've got, 100 plus year history with sports cards. There's historical significance. There's performance related to it. And then once everybody lost interest in Beanie Babies, they became flooded into the market. So of course, when you have people that are collecting these things, when you have people that are holding on to them because it's like, okay, there might be some future value here. Once once the idea of that or the thought of that goes away, and people are like, sell, fire sale, everybody is getting out of the market, then of course that's what happened with Beanie Babies. They're flooded, where a $30 Beanie Baby was now $1. And, you can draw comparisons to all collectible spaces. Of course, now it's a lot more mature of a space where you're looking at a variety of different factors that are involved. Third-party grading is a big one. Authentication is a big one. And then also usability of these things, assets as a hedge against inflation. There's a lot of different things going on, a lot of moving parts that did not exist in 1993 to 1997. But the human psychology part and the FOMO part is definitely something that I see as kind of a similarity to some of this stuff. And so, guys, let me know your thoughts on this. Were you around during those Beanie Baby times? Did you get involved in any of it? But and again, another thing they talk about too, and it's what we talked about on the channel all the time, is there's people that are interviewed in there that put a lot of the stuff on credit cards and got absolutely smoked financially from getting into Beanie Babies. And these weren't even necessarily people that are buying them because of the hopes of them being worth 10 times or 100 times more down the road. It was literally because of an obsession, more of like a hoarding obsession, of just wanting to have them around, and that being really the driver, not necessarily that it's going to be worth 10x or 100x, which I thought was really interesting, because that's kind of the other side when we talk about kind of the people getting into credit card debt and so forth with collectible sports cards. The thought is that they're buying a $4,000 flawless box or a National Treasures box. They get nothing out of it and they're out that money, or they get, $500 worth of value and they're out that money or whatever. But it also could just be that they're buying, hoarding a lot of small things and putting it on a credit card. It's really all relative. $1,000 of credit card debt might be a lot to somebody, might be not a lot for someone else. 10,000, 5,000, it's all relative. So I thought that was really kind of interesting take as well. But guys, definitely check that out if you can. It's called Beanie Mania. It's on HBO Max. And again, let me know if you were around during this time, your overall thoughts on this. And again, I am not saying that Beanie Babies and sports cards are the same. They're not. It's a different market, but some of the stuff there are similar types of elements creating scarcity, mass-produced scarcity, and then also just the FOMO element of the human psychology, human behavior of it that can be similar in certain circumstances. All right, guys, have an amazing rest of your day. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.